Hi everyone, so as I said in my previous video, as it's Doctor Who's 60th anniversary coming up, I thought I'd do videos focusing on different topics involving the show. In today's episode, I'll be looking at, well, who's a better villain, Davros or the Master? They're both contenders for being the Doctor's archenemy, and they're two of the most iconic villains on the show, but who truly is the worst of the worst? Now, I'm not going to do a whole versus video, really. I'm just trying to look into who is a more superior villain, really. I know if there was a physical fight between the two, the Master would hands down beat Davros. But yeah. Oh God, I'm muttering again. I feel like in order for this to work, I'm gonna have to talk about each character in their own individual way, which is going to be difficult for one particular character, which I'll go into later. Uh, I feel like I just kind of want to talk about their role in the overall series and what some of their more key moments, what they've been responsible for. So, as he's made the most appearances, I suppose I got to start with the Master. So, the Master's backstory, from what we can tell, is well, from what we know through the television show and the extended media, is the Master and the Doctor were once childhood friends who grew up in the Academy of Time Lords until as they grew up, the Master, much like the Doctor, decides to leave Gallifrey, but instead of exploring the universe for scientific reasons like the Doctor did, he decides to go, you know what, the universe would be better underneath my control, and since then he's been trying to take over. So pretty standard world domination stuff. I think what makes the Master stand out, however, is as a Time Lord he has the ability to regenerate, which gives the character an opportunity to showcase different sides of them through their different selves, if that makes sense. And from the Masters we've seen on the television series, from the classic series all the way to the new series, we always see a different side of the character. I think, I mean, the first Master we see, or at least the first official Master we see, was played by Roger Delgado in Terror of the Autons, a Third Doctor story, and already in that episode, they established that there's a history between him and the Doctor. I mean, a Time Lord comes down to warn the Doctor about the Master, and the Doctor already knows who he is, and it does establish that there is a history between the two of them, and there is a reason why. Sorry, I'm trying to think of a good way to. I feel like with Roche Delgado's portrayal of the Master, he played him as a charismatic, sophisticated, um, yeah. At the same time, there was a bit of a what's best. There is some scenes that shows him. You wouldn't think he was a bad guy in some scenes. I mean, the way he talks to the Doctor, he doesn't talk to the Doctor like they're arch enemies. No, he talks to the Doctor like they're old friends. In fact, that's pretty much the whole sums up the whole relationship between the two characters. Really, that they see. I feel like when it comes to a Doctor and Master pairing, they need to be established as friends. You need to remember that they used to be friends, or in a twisted way, they are still friends. And either one of them wants to go back to the things they were when they were kids, or they like how it is now. They just try to extend on that. But yeah, if you watch the episodes, the Third Doctor episodes with the Master, it clearly does establish. You can easily tell from the way the Doctor and the Master talk to each other that they are. You can easily believe that these two used to be friends, and in some way they still consider each other friends. They just both went down different paths. And I think it helps that John Pertwee and Roger Delgado were actual friends in real life. Maybe not close friends as the characters they played were, but they were friends. And I feel like whenever a Doctor gets cast, whoever, if the showrunner or whatever wants to bring the Master into their era, I think they should cast an actor that's worked with this actor before, because the chemistry is already there. And after the Delgado's Master's last appearance, which is the Phantom Frontier in Space, where he just runs off screen. Originally, this Master was going to have a final story, which would have been the Third Doctor's final adventure, where it would have ended with him sacrificing himself to save the Doctor. And when you read that and you watch the episodes with the Master in it, they do kind of hint that that might potentially happen. Because, like I said, the the way that Master is written, it's he clearly still has a fondness for the Doctor. I think another great example is when the Master's inside the Doctor's TARDIS and he looks on. I can't remember what the episode was. I believe it was the Axons ones. It was definitely in season 8, where the Master's inside the Doctor's TARDIS, and well, it's just the way he sees how messy the control the control bit is, and he sees how messy it is, and the way he says it is like, it doesn't feel like a villain inside the hero's house. It feels more like a friend in noticing how messy another friend's house is. And yeah, that just perfectly sums up their relationship. It does kind of change a bit when the Master next appears in The Deadly Assassin with Tom Baker as the Doctor and um, Peter Pratt as the Master. Unlike Pertwee and Delgado, the Fourth Doctors and the Decay Master, as the fans have called them, the way they interact, it's you would not think they were friends. They've got a proper hatred for one another. And while I don't hate the Deadly Assassin story as a whole, I think it is one of the more memorable of the Fourth Doctor's episodes. I just don't like how the Doctor and the Master are written. They don't treat each other as, we used to be friends. In some ways, the Doctor kind of treats the Master in his story as any other villain. I mean, he does mention that they had a history, but it just doesn't feel real enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Master's appearance and his whole motivation, it makes sense. He's run out of regenerations. He pretty much doesn't want to die, more or less. Completely understandable, but yeah, he can't, and his appearance as well. His appearance is frightening. I mean, especially for New Who, it is a pretty frightening appearance. I can understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to make him look like a corpse, like a proper zombie without eyelids, without lips. I would love to see this design in the new series, in the revival, in the later series, because can you just imagine that design with more up to date effects? God, it would be horrifying. But yeah, what was missing is the the whole "we used to be friends" angle to that relationship. That just wasn't there in that episode. And they kind of brought it back with Keeper of Tracking when the Master, now played by Jeffrey Beavers, they do try to bring it back, but again, it just didn't feel the same without it just didn't. To tell the truth, from after Delgado's unfortunate passing, where they had to recast the Master, it just didn't feel the same really with even when Anthony Anley took it over and it was Peter Davison's Doctor, they kind of got close to the whole friend enemy relationship angle, which Pertwee and Delgado had. And it is, they do kind of establish it with Peter Davison and Anthony Anley. You do kind of get that side of them again, which is much more that I got from Tom Baker's Doctor with his masters, even though one of his masters was Ainley's master. But at the same time, he did only just have one story with him, so I suppose maybe they could have established it a bit more. I don't know. I'm kind of talking about the whole. I, I'm kind of focusing more on the relationship between the Master and the Doctor more than the Master themselves, because this whole video was to show trying to explain who's the better villain, the Master or Davros, and as a villain, but see the problem is that when you look at the Master on their own, they can be really entertaining. They can go from calculating and sinister to over the top and entertaining in one switch, and each incarnation does have their moments. They all have their hammy over the top performances and moments, and but I just feel like, see, the problem with writing for the Master is you got to try and not make him come across as a stereotypical mustache twirling villain, unless that's the whole. He's doing it on purpose. They're doing it on purpose, like the way Michelle Gomez portrays Missy. Missy knows she was the bad guy, but she just had fun with it. She knew what type of character she was. But I'm going to try and get to Missy in a minute. But going back to the classic series, God, I'm trying very hard not to trail off here. But when you look at the classic series, the two main masters we had were Wash Delgado and Anthony Anley, and they were both, in many ways, they were kind of similar to one another. Ainley, I think, I don't know if this is true, but I remember reading somewhere that Ainley intentionally made himself like Delgado, because I think the producers at the time, the writers and producers at the time, wanted people to remember that this is the Master. So he's got the goatee, he's got the whole slicked black hair, and but unlike Delgado's version of the Master, Ainley's Master was a bit more theatrical, a bit more flamboyant. Uh, he I mean, especially in the Sixth Doctor era, he came across more like a panto villain, and you just could not take him seriously. I'm sorry, but I think out of all the Doctors and Masters in the classic series, I just did not get the same energy from Colin Baker and Anthony Ainley. I'm sorry, but I just didn't get the same type of Doctor and Master dynamic for those two. It just felt, well, personally, I just didn't see the point in the Master for the Six Doctors era because the Sixth Doctor had the Valiard, and that was an actual evil version of the Doctor. So I just didn't see the point in Anthony Ainley being in the Six Doctors era. And when he did appear, his master was treated like a joke. You would not think this was meant to be a universal conquest mass murderer. But that all changed with the Seventh Doctor's episode Survival, which was not only the final appearance of the Master in the classic series, but it was the final episode in the classic series as a whole. And yeah, it is a pretty good story to end out on. And the Master in that episode, that is probably the most sinister he's been for ages. And Ainley managed to portray it in a way that makes up for all the embellishments he did during the Sixth Doctor's era. And he was back to being this calculating, deceiving monster who pretty much just ruins people's lives just because he can. And that's kind of the type of master that the Revive series is trying to get across. Like, I wish I could talk about Derek Jacobi's portrayal, but he appears in very briefly. I know he's done a lot of big Finnish audios, but I've not listened to audios, and I kind of just wanted to focus on the television series because it's just much more simple like that. And in many ways, when you look at the Master story from the classic series to now, they do kind of have a continuation. There is a sense of continuity to them, and I'm not just saying like the Master appears and he's like, "Aha, I'm back," from whatever. No, they, personality wise, it does feel like, yeah, you can believe that this is the Master, except when they make him a bit too silly with the Sixth Doctor's era. I mean, I nearly talked about the new series Masters without mentioning Eric Roberts. Oh my god, sorry about that. But see, I might as well very quickly talk about Eric Roberts's version of the Master. I know a lot of people thought he was a bit too campy or over the top, but I, I don't think that's really fair. I mean, that was only his only screen appearance. I feel like if Eric Roberts continued playing the Master, I think people would have eventually warmed up to him. Yeah, the American accent's a bit distracting, but I'm gonna say, character wise, the idea of the Master trying to steal the Doctor's remaining regenerations, that just felt natural. Like, yeah, if the Master runs out, he would try and steal them from the Doctor, because if there's one key aspect of the Master that's always consistent, is that when they're near death, like proper near death, they would do anything to survive. Unless, of course, you're John Sims' Master. Now, John Sims' Master was since he appears a lot more, he's usually considered the first proper Master for the Revive series, and he's a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, people like him for being over the top, theatrical, evil for the sake of being evil, but on the other hand, a lot of people see him as too over the top, too extravagant, and it can be distracting for some. But when it comes to John Sims' portrayal of the Master, it's the quiet moments he has with the Doctor, which reminds us that this is, you can feel like this is the same character from the classic series when he has the little quiet moments with just the Doctor. It does feel like the hatred is much more apparent this time, but if someone kept on foiling your plans every time, you would build a hatred for them at that point. And then, of course, after that, we had Michelle Gomez's Missy. Now, Missy's take on the Master is probably the most interesting one because she's the only version of the Master so far that's actually shown redeemable qualities. And that's another aspect of the character that it's not really talked about, it's kind of overlooked, but it is there, and that is the Doctor trying to make the Master redeemable. Because it all goes back to we used to be friends type situation. The Doctor, in his own way, wants the Master to be his friend again, and much like the Doctor, the Master kind of wants to be friends with the Doctor again. So, and that is one of the key aspects to the character. It is their relationship with the Doctor that makes them stand out. And yeah, I know all the theories. There's theories that, oh, they're not just friends, they're actually more than that. They're siblings, they're lovers. There's another theory that the Master is the Doctor. It is a very complicated relationship. And to me, to write a good Master story, you need to include that relationship because that's what makes the Master stand out. That and another thing which I'm just gonna I'm just gonna say it might be a bit controversial, but I'm gonna outright I'm gonna say it because I feel like this is what makes the Master the Master. Well, three things actually. Oh, God, I keep on adding. I really got to plan these things out a bit more, but there's three things to me that makes the Master the Master. Their relationship with the Doctor, their megalomania, which is pretty obvious. In fact, that's probably the one key trait that every Master has. They're all a megalomaniac. No matter which incarnation, they they want power, they want to be in charge, and if they have to kill a bunch of people to get to it, they will do it. That's one recurring trait about them. The one thing that actually makes them all the Master. But the third thing I want to talk about, which is going to be a bit controversial, and people can disagree with me, feel free, and that is pitifulness. In many ways, the Master is pathetic. The Master is meant to be a pathetic character. I'm not saying they're a bad character, no, but I'm just saying there is a bit of a patheticness to them. Let me explain. While the Doctor does treat the Master as a threat, it's not like he's a threat because of how much power or how much resources they have. It's more like they're dangerous because they're a danger to themselves. If you get what I mean, it's like they're dangerous, but they're they they're only dangerous because they have no idea what they're doing, and in that type of situation, and the Master shows that, and I feel like no matter what the Master does, the Doctor doesn't treat them seriously as a villain. They treat them seriously as they do treat them seriously as a threat, but they don't treat them seriously as a villain. They see him more as a sick person who is going to hurt themselves and hurt a lot of other people in the process. And I feel like the latest Master, the Sacha Dawson Master, I feel like his version of the character perfectly incorporates all of that. I mean, they have a complicated relationship with the Doctor. They're a megalomaniac, but they've also got a sense of patheticness to them, pitifulness, that makes them sympathetic at the same time. Because that's how I feel like the Master needs to be written. Yeah, they are the Doctor's equal, but at the same time, they're the Doctor's friend. But they're a friend who's sick, really. that they're mentally unwell, that just needs help, and the doctors try and help them, but they know that they can't help them if they're still going to try and do all these horrible acts for really no reason other than to glorify their ego. And yeah. So yeah, I mean, saying all that, the Master is a more than just a generic world domination villain. He is his relationship with the Doctor. Their relationship with the Doctor is their key aspect to them, one of their key aspects to them, and that's why they're such an important part of the Doctor's story because of their history and their relationship. Um, with I suppose I can now move on to Davros. Now, Davros, Davros is a bit different. As the creator of the Daleks, Davros is another big contender for the Doctor for being the Doctor's archenemy. In fact, in my opinion, Davros has more right to be the Doctor's archenemy than the Master, because, as I said, the Doctor sees the Master as not as an enemy, but as a friend who needs help. But Davros, you can tell that the Doctor hates Davros, and every time he appears, the Doctor just shows nothing but disgust to Davros, and doesn't speak highly of him either. And I'm going to try and keep this short because, in many ways, the Doctor and Davros' relationship is more of a typical arch-enemy relationship. They hate each other, but at the same time, they do have a bit of a respect for one another because of they're both men of science, and they're the conversations they have, especially best shown in Genesis of the Daleks between the Doctor and Davros, with the whole if you sorry if you have the ability to kill a whole planet with one flick of your wrist or something like that, I believe it was, and Davros is like, yeah, I would do it. And yeah, it's it becomes less like a battle between two people who hate each other, more of a battle of ideologies with the Doctor and Davros, because they both have completely different ideologies, and one of them believes in power is might, while the other one believes in all life is precious. It does raise a lot of political, philosophical, and morality questions when the Doctor and Davros encounter each other. And what I really like is, unlike the Master, if you count every incarnation as the Master as a single individual, which they are, sort of, Davros has made less appearances and appears later in the overall show, but I actually like that because in many ways Davros' story feels consistent each time he appears. And even in the Revive series as well, he's only made 2 big appearances, and honestly, I'm glad they do that because I feel like Davros should be used sparingly. Because unlike the Master, I just don't feel like Davros can be constantly brought back. I feel like he is a character who has a clear beginning middle. He doesn't have a definitive ending yet, but I do feel like we need to have an episode where Davros is killed off for good. In fact, Stolen, the journey's end, where he's left behind on the Crucible being destroyed, I honestly do think that should have been Davros' last appearance, or at the end of the 12th Doctor episode, The Witch is Familiar, where Davros is claiming to die. Part of me thinks, yeah, maybe he should have actually died, and be killed off for good. Because I just don't feel like Davros' story needs to continue. I feel like his story is being consistent enough. And because of that, in my personal opinion, I think Davros is the more superior villain. Because, as I said, the Master, when you look at it in when you look at it in a certain perspective, not only are they a more of a frenemy to the Doctor, but the Doctor doesn't really have a lot of hatred for them. They just feel pityness and they want to help the Master. They want their friend back. But with Davros, it's it's more traditional. It's more, they hate this man because he's responsible for so much death, destruction, and atrocities through the Daleks that, they just want to stop him and put an end to him once and for all. And as Davros is responsible for the Daleks, and you can't talk about Doctor Who without the Daleks, Davros does have a bigger impact in the overall story than the Master does. I mean, I could be wrong, that's just my opinion, but I, it's actually kind of funny because very recently we've had new development in the whole Davros story, because literally very recently we've had a new minisode by Rusty Davies starring David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, with the Doctor crashing into Skaro and pretty much being responsible for why the Daleks have a plunger for an arm. But it's a short little sketch for children in need. It's for charity. You don't have to take it too seriously. But Davros appears in it, played by his current actor Julian Bleach. But unlike his previous appearances, he's normal. He's normal looking. No unit underneath. He's got both arms. He's not disfigured. He's normal. And according to the behind the scenes, Rusty Davies has implied that this might be what Davros is going to look like from now on, as he feels that the whole cliche of villains being disabled or having disabilities needs to, we need to get with the times, really. And, well, I do understand what Rusty Davies is doing, and I feel like there can be an interesting way you can take Davros if that's the route you're going with. But on the other hand, Davros's look is just original look is just so iconic, and if I think about a creator of the Daleks, I would kind of expect him to be half Dalek himself. And as some people do point out, it's not the disability that makes Davros evil. Davros was always evil even before his accident. And I feel like that's the route they should go with Davros if it's before his accident. Establish him, do an origin for him, but establish that he was always evil, not that it was his accident that made him evil. Do something like the Killing Joke, like make Davros normal looking, but have all the atrocities during being on the planet Skull just keep on piling up, piling up, piling up, and have the accident be the thing that officially puts him over the edge. Don't make it the main reason why he's evil, but just have it as like the final tipping point. Kind of like the Joker and the Killing Joke, just have, all these things piling on until eventually he snaps. And but keep him as the bad guy. Don't make it too sympathetic, because I feel like Davros is one of those characters we can definitely say is pure evil. Keep him pure evil. Have his establish that it's his ideologies and his actions that are evil, not his appearance. And personally, if you want to update, well, not update, but if you want to remodel Davros, I feel like they need to add something, I still feel like they should add something to him, because the way he looks normal, it's it's bland, it's boring. This is the creator of the Daleks. We need to have a Dalek element to him, and not just his actions. We need to have, give him Dalek armor, or have him lose his eyes, but have him keep that blue eye in the center of his forehead, because just something to make him still stand out. And that's all I'm really going to say on the matter. I hope I haven't pissed anyone off, because that's yeah, it's been tricky to talk about these subjects without getting one person angry, but I'm hoping I've made my point clear, and I'm still looking forward to seeing where Doctor Who's going from here, and I'm sure to have a new subject matter to talk about next time. So have a nice day. Bye.